It's time for another edition of the Daily Racing Form Weekend Preview. And don't adjust your screens. It is us on a Saturday. Yeah, things are a little different this week, Alexa, because of all the basketball that's happening Thursday and Friday, 16 games all throughout the day. Everyone's brackets are busted probably by this time.
My
But
Jayhawks are already out.
I know that was a tough one. My
Yeah.
Trojans didn't even make it this year. We did not have a very good year in the Big Ten. So I'm focused on other teams, and I'm kind of curious how my bracket will continue to do. But we kind of have our qualifying time right now in the world of horse racing, Alexa. Over the next month or so, all of these major horses are trying to get themselves qualified for the Kentucky Derby and for the Kentucky Oaks. We can't forget about the ladies, and we're going to focus on them in our final segment this week. But on Saturday, it's going to be the Louisiana Derby from Fairgrounds, and it's also going to be the Jeff Ruby Stakes from Turfway Park. Both of those races have Kentucky Derby points up for grabs. Basically, the winner and the second place finisher of both of them will lock their spots in for the Kentucky Derby. And then we can talk about the Oaks and some of those races in the final segment. We're going to be busy every single week here on out, Alexa.
Yeah, I mean, the Derby is 6 weeks away from today when you're seeing this. So, I mean, this is the moment you want to be refreshed and ready going into the Derby. So you're trying to win in right now.
You know what? It is kind of similar to how March Madness plays out, where you'll have a lot of regional qualifiers. So, for example, we're going to be talking about Fairgrounds, so we can head on out and look at the field for the Louisiana Derby. These are all horses that are based locally in Louisiana. They've been sort of running there. That's where their trainers and their owners have their horses based. And then we'll see the same sort of grouping of horses out in Kentucky for Turfway Park. Next week, we'll see the horses down in Florida for Gulfstream, and we'll also see Oaklawn Park for the Arkansas Derby. So all over, you'll have these groupings of horses, and the top 2 or 3 from each of those groups will go on and all compete in the Kentucky Derby. So you'll get sort of the best of each section across the country, and actually now even more than the country, where we've gotten international and we get horses coming from all over the place. Alexa, let's see who's going to get themselves qualified this week. And we start out going horse by horse in the Louisiana Derby with an undefeated runner, John Hancock. He actually won the Sam F. Davis, which is a pretty big race over at Tampa Bay Downs. And the horse that he beat in that race is named Owen Almighty. Owen Almighty just came back and won the Tampa Bay Derby. So John Hancock beat a nice horse who's actually made his form overall look even better now that Owen Almighty came back and won.
Yeah, I mean, this is the horse to beat in here. I will expect him to be really forwardly placed in the race. The only bummer is drawing the one position, because this horse is going to want to go straight to the lead, and that's not really where you want to be right on the rail. But that being said, I mean, like you said, undefeated, who he's beat is coming back to win, so a serious contender.
When you're talking about the best trainers and the best jockeys, Brad Cox is like top 3 to the top 5 at the most on any list right now. He's one of the absolute best. Flavian Pratt is probably top 2 on most people's lists, right next to Irad Ortiz Jr. So you have one of the best trainers and one of the best jockeys teaming up with John Hancock. Chunk of Gold came on running late in the Risen Star. He did finish second. He was well defeated that day, but he seems like a horse who's at least moving in the right direction, Alexa.
Yeah, I mean, he was 43-1 that day, so definitely outran his odds. Broke slowly, encountered some traffic, but still managed to close strongly. So I do think a cleaner trip could make him a serious contender, and he should have a fast pace to run into.
Number 3, Tiz-tastic, was 5th in the Rebel most recently. He had some trouble a couple starts back in the Southwest. That was the race where I could make an excuse for him. Last time out, I think he was a little bit disappointing. I was expecting more from him. What do you think about Tiz-tastic in here?
Yeah, he's a really consistent performer. You know, he's placed in 3 of the 4 Derby preps, including a third in the Risen Star after a wide trip. But his only wins have been on the turf. So, I mean, experience and class are upside, but I think he would definitely need to improve based off what we've seen this weekend.
The number 4, Yinzer, is a horse who's really fast early on. He was able to win his last start because not very many other horses were pushing him on the front end. I'm just worried in this race where he's going to have to deal with other early speed, Alexa.
Yeah, I mean, that's a negative, but also potential positive if John Hancock were to get kind of stuck on the rail. Like, he could be one to set the pace in here. But I think he would need some serious race luck and others' misfortune to win this one.
Caldera goes out for D. Wayne Lucas, the Hall of Famer. We saw him jump into the Kentucky Derby scene last week with a win in the Virginia Derby. He also has a horse running at Turfway Park, so he could have a couple horses that make their way into the starting gate. Caldera was a horse who was impressive, but also disappointing at the same time in the Sunland Derby, because he continued to move forward, but gosh, he looked like he was going to win that race pretty easily at the top of the lane. If you bet him, you were probably feeling really confident that he was going to blow right by, and he kind of hung a little bit, and the horse on the inside, Getaway Car, battled back. So I'm not that high on Getaway Car. That's where I'm kind of hemming and hawing on him, right, Alexa?
Right, because Getaway Car came back and disappointed in the Virginia Derby last weekend as the favorite. So you're kind of like, that's not a super good mark for Caldera. But he is versatile. He's versatility in running styles. He's been on the lead. He's been able to close. So from that point, there is upside. The extra furlong, they're adding some distance, I think could suit him well. So interesting play.
Then what makes this particular race really challenging and really fun to look at as a bettor, none of the real like top 3 or top 5 horses in this division right now or in this race. So it's more spread out. It's kind of wide open. There's nobody that's going to be an overwhelming short price favorite in here. You don't have one of the Bob Baffert horses who's kind of always going to take a lot of money. Built, though, is one of the more proven horses, Alexa. He ran second in the Lecomte and then third in the Risen Star, which are the prep races before the Louisiana Derby. So he is one of the better of this group. I just worry a little bit with him. How far does he really want to go? Like, is this distance a little bit farther than his best? But he's certainly capable from a talent standpoint of competing with these.
I agree. I have him underneath in my selections. He didn't get the lead early in that last race, which he wanted. So they are adding blinkers this race, which might help him push through and get the spot he wants. But it is definitely a distance question if he can sustain his run.
Horse that I'm really interested in here is the number 7, Vossimo. He ran such a weird race in the Risen Star last time out because he was sitting third down on the inside. He wasn't too far behind the horses that were on the front end. And then he started to back up. Just looked like he was done. After backing up, he moves to the outside and he re-rallies and he comes on again. So, Alexa, I love when a horse like that gets an equipment change, because to me, that shows me this horse has some ability, but maybe mentally he's not quite there yet, right? He's got to figure it all out and put it together. That's what the blinkers could really help with a horse like Vossimo. So he might be interesting as a horse who's still green, still learning, but if he can put it all together, I think there's some talent there.
Yeah, I didn't use him, but I mean, you have a really convincing argument there. Definitely has talent, like you said, adding blinkers, adding some distance. So is liable to make an improvement for sure.
The one thing I'd be worried about is that when Irad Ortiz Jr. rides a horse, they almost always get bet. So he might get overbet a little bit just off the connections. But if he is like 8-10 to 1, it's probably pretty fair in here. Furio feels like one who's going to be forwardly placed, right? If we're going to try to get to the lead, that's where he's been at his best.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, this horse is drastically improving every start. It's going to have to do it this weekend without the Lasix, though. Would need another big improvement. So you're going to get long odds on him. And I actually could see using him underneath as a price play, since we just definitely, I don't think, have seen his ceiling yet.
The outside two, I think, both kind of interesting. You like the 9 a little bit here, right? Coming off that big win.
Yeah, the 9, he likes to come from off the pace and close, which is how he won his last race at Fairgrounds last month. Beat Furio that day that we just talked about by 5 lengths. There's a stat you can't ignore with trainer Brad Cox. When his horses are running for the second time off of a layoff, like Instant Replay is, wins 30% of the time. And that's with a sample size of 150 horses. So he just really is good at getting his horses in the winner's circle second off the layoff.
He gets them a start, then he knows what they need fitness-wise, and then he gets them ready to rock. Hipness to the outside rounds out the field. He's only going to make his 3rd start. He had some legitimate trouble last time out. So if we move to selections before our first commercial break, Alexa, you have, just verbally mentioned, believe you have the 9 on top, 9-2-1-6. For me, I'm going to go with the 7 on top, offering us a little bit of value. Let's take a quick commercial break, and we'll head on over to Turfway Park.